Good evening, thanks for joining us. This is NTD Business, and I'm Paul Graney. Is Tesla telling tall tales? New research says its cars can't travel as far as you think. Bitcoin to the moon. Now two financial firms say they'll go there with it. Top publisher Condé Nast is struggling to pay its rent. It's just the latest company feeling the recessionary pinch. That and more coming up at NTD Business. Bitcoin hit a record high today after falling back a little to $46,000 and $46,700 a coin. It rose today after news Bank of New York Mellon, one of the oldest banks in the world, says it's forming a new unit to handle digital assets for its clients. You should be able to take advantage of the new services later this year. And MasterCard says it's also planning to offer support for some cryptocurrencies on its network. It's a pretty vague description, I know, but it's all the details we have at the moment. Asset manager BlackRock and payments companies Square and PayPal have also recently backed Bitcoin. And the S&P 500 closed at a record today. The Dow was flat, the Nasdaq gained a little as well. The Dow lost about 7 points, or 0.2%. The S&P 500 gained 6.5 points, or 0.17%. The Nasdaq added 53 points, or 0.38%. And House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says the $15 minimum wage will be included in the bill that the House sends to the Senate. Democrats are trying to push through nearly their $2 trillion aid package. On the data front, the number of Americans filing for unemployment fell slightly this week, but the total number of people receiving benefits rose sharply. Part of that might be to reflect a rush of claims after two federal aid programs got extended. And shares of Taiwan Semiconductor are up over 4% today, so are some other chip-related stocks. There's a major shortage, of course. Now, U.S. chip makers are urging President Biden to strengthen domestic production and stop the U.S. from losing its edge. NTD's Patrick Hayden reports.
US chip CEOs want Biden to fund domestic production. They're asking him to include funding for chip factories in his stimulus package in the form of grants or tax credits. They say the United States used to make 37% of the world's chips in 1990. Now it's down to only 12%. Most chips are now made in Taiwan or South Korea. They write, "This is largely because the governments of our global competitors offer significant incentives and subsidies to attract new semiconductor manufacturing facilities, while the US does not. They say US leadership in the industry is at risk, and they need to stay competitive in the technologies of the future like artificial intelligence, 5G and 6G, and quantum computing." China is currently heavily investing in its own chip industry. National security concerns about Chinese tech companies means the US won't want Chinese chips. So strengthening US domestic manufacturing is one way to protect these security concerns. Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
And Tesla shares are up almost 1% today after its sell-off yesterday. And it turns out Elon Musk's younger brother sold about 5% of his shares just before that sell-off for about $26 million. Tidy profit, I'm sure. And other than Elon Musk's tweets, what comes to mind when you think of Tesla? Maybe an exceptional driving range with a single charge? Well, one researcher says it doesn't live up to its claims. It's actually way behind Audi, Chevy, Ford. NTD's Patrick Hayden has the details.
A recent Edmunds electric car test found that every single Tesla car failed to hit EPA range estimates. Electric vehicle analyst Gordon Johnson says it's not the first time Tesla has done poorly. But the range is one of the most important factors in an EV purchase, meaning how far one battery charge will take you.
When you buy a Tesla car, right, a lot of what you're buying is the range. And if the range is a quarter to 30% less than what you think, you're effectively getting a product that isn't what it's supposed to be.
Johnson says Chinese consumers will continue to complain about Tesla, but in the US the issue isn't being addressed because of the zealousness of the environmental movement.
The Chinese people, they're not going to say, we just love your car because it's EV. They're going to say, this car fell apart. I want my money back. And if you get too many of those complaints in China, the government is forced to act. You get those
Yeah.
complaints in the USA, and because he's seen as a green god, it's just swept under the rug and nobody does anything. That's the difference.
He claims Elon Musk has consistently lied to the public, but this time he thinks the situation should be compared to VW's Dieselgate scandal.
And I think why this is very important is because VW, with respect to their Dieselgate scandal, got caught doing something similar, right? They were overstating or understating rather their emissions in their cars, and they got hit with a $400 billion fine.
Johnson says Tesla's market share this year went from roughly 28% to 14%. He says when competition arrives, Tesla loses, and traditional car makers will continue to outperform the company. Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
And Tesla still has Volkswagen in its rearview mirror. It's partnering with Microsoft to help develop software for self-driving cars. Julian Satherwaite reports.
Volkswagen is tapping into Microsoft's cloud computing expertise to help develop self-driving cars. The German giant owns numerous brands, including Audi and Porsche, but its various units had all been making their own efforts on self-driving tech. Last year, VW consolidated some of those programs into one subsidiary, but the many brands were still using assorted different systems to develop software. Now they will all be hooked up to Microsoft's cloud. That will also help VW tackle one of Tesla's big perceived advantages, the ability to do regular updates. Software developed in the cloud will now be beamed straight into cars, allowing them to develop new functions over time. That means vehicles can hit the road with only limited self-driving ability, but then grow more autonomous as the years pass.
If you could take your eyes off the soaring stock market for a moment, you'll see that businesses are still really struggling, even the big ones. One of America's biggest publishers, Condé Nast, is now withholding millions of dollars of rent from the One World Trade Center. Wants a rent reduction. NTD's Tom Ozimek has the details.
The Wall Street Journal reports that publisher Condé Nast is withholding $2.4 million in rent at the One World Trade Center. Condé Nast publishes titles like GQ, Vogue, Wired, and The New Yorker. It's struggling with falling revenue amid the pandemic and skipped its January rent payment. The company reportedly wants to cut its square footage and reduce rent per square foot. A spokesman told the Wall Street Journal that the company is in discussions with the co-owners of One World Trade Center about resolving the rent dispute. The publisher wants its lease to be brought into line with current market conditions. The Port Authority, which co-owns One World Trade Center, said it plans to enforce full payment. New York City's commercial real estate market faces mounting pressure. The city was one of the hardest hit by the outbreak, with shutdowns emptying offices and restaurants and closing theaters and shops. Last year, a Wells Fargo report found that property values of over 100 struggling New York buildings fell by an average of 27%. A recent bond document filing says Condé Nast could withhold more money in coming months. Tom Ozimek, NTD News.
And if things in America are bad, Europe is even worse. A new note from the EU suggests Europe will see a wave of bankruptcies and bad loans, even though it injected almost $3 trillion to keep businesses and the economy on life support. When that support ends, it'll be bad times for our European friends. Maybe not surprising given the EU's lockdowns were and still are much more severe than the United States. But what is surprising, when I spoke with Daniel Lacaille about it, is that the EU didn't see any growth in the last quarter of 2020. The US grew by 4%. Make things worse, Europe isn't expecting growth in the first quarter of this year either. The European economy is in bad shape. I had to ask Lacaille, did I mishear that?
No, you didn't, unfortunately. No, you didn't. If you look at the estimates of GDP recovery for the first quarter of 2021, you will see that they range between a mild contraction to zero. So that's unfortunately the case. The fourth quarter was also very weak, You saw that, for example, in economies that were supposed to recover 1.5%, 2%, like Spain or Italy, that they ended up recovering barely 0.4% in the case of Spain and even actually only because of massive government spending. No? So, yeah, it's a very difficult situation in Europe. I understand that our US colleagues and friends find that the situation in the United States is complicated. It is, obviously, but the situation in the European Union is very dramatic, and many people in furloughed jobs are finding themselves now into a year being in a furloughed job, and that is very concerning for many people that are starting to worry that what was supposed to be a measure to adapt to a short but important crisis that would recover very quickly is not happening.
You'll remember the time, 2008, 2009, the buzzword was austerity, right? Austerity, yeah. And it was basically households had to cut back, governments had to put austerity, they had to cut back on their expenses. People weren't happy, people complained about austerity. But this time, I haven't heard about one government talking about cutbacks like you mentioned. I never heard it once.
There hasn't been any level of, not austerity, there has been no level of mild government budget moderation. Huh? None whatsoever.
I haven't heard it.
The expenditure of 2019 was kept. The expenditure rose in 2020 as well before COVID-19. And from that elevated level, governments are spending a lot more. Now, you can say, okay, it's a time of pandemic, governments have to spend and they have to put money to work in order to get the economy coming back. But the economy is not coming back because you shut down the economy. So what this massive level of government spending is doing very little to keep the economy alive. And at the same time, the government is spending a lot, and the solvency problem in businesses is building up. So what you create is a double imbalance that actually works like a pressure cooker that it can explode very quickly once the umbrella of COVID-19 is not there to explain all of the problems anymore. Right now, you have many Eurozone countries that say, oh, well, yeah, the economy is not coming back because of COVID-19. It's because of the shutdowns. It's because of the decision of governments to close the economy. Well, yes, absolutely, it is. But the problem that is being created because of those measures is long-term and creates massive ripple effects.
I'm shocked. I still can't get over your figures in Europe. I never knew it was so bad. I didn't know. I didn't hear. I don't think anybody's talking about it, really. Daniel, I appreciate it. I'm mind blown, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure.
And still to come, Target paying employees to get vaccinated and offering free rides to get them there. And Amsterdam overtaking London. It's now the largest stock trading center in Europe. What happened? That and more after the break.
It's just clear as day. The media, whether it's broadcast, cable, or print media, has become extremely biased. And I started looking online for alternative ways to get information. And I saw an ad for a free trial. And I looked at it and I said, Epoch Times. I mean, come on, this is end of days type of stuff. I mean, what are they going to be talking about here? And I said, well, it's a free trial. Let me dig in. Is it giving me both sides? Is it giving me an objective point of view here? I have looked for opportunities to see where they might be biased, and I don't find it. It has given me a level of trust in media that I didn't think I'd ever get back. I love the Epoch Times because it has renewed my faith in the idea that a reliable, responsible, non-biased source of information is available. And I can say that I love it because of that.
Target is offering employees cash and a free ride to get a CCP virus vaccine. The retail chain says workers will receive 4 hours of pay and $15 for a Lyft ride when they roll up their sleeves for the shots. Target's also joining forces with CVS to offer vaccines in their stores and distribution centers. The CDC says more than 42 million vaccine doses have been distributed so far, but a new poll shows about 1 in 3 Americans say they definitely or probably won't get the vaccine. They're citing doubts about the vaccine's safety and effectiveness. And at-home snacking during a global pandemic helped PepsiCo beat fourth quarter profit and sales forecasts. The company is now optimistic its financial fortunes will only improve as the economy reopens. Conway G. Gittins reports.
PepsiCo sounded a note of optimism Thursday as it bets on consumer lifestyles returning to normal as economies reopened and more people get vaccinated. The soft drink and snacks conglomerate has fared better than its larger rival Coca-Cola when it comes to navigating through the health crisis. Pepsi reported a bigger than expected jump in fourth quarter sales on Thursday, with stay-at-home consumers stocking up on the company's snacks like Tostitos and Cheetos. Sales of the Gatorade sports drink were also pretty solid. In order to meet a surge in demand, Pepsi last year launched a direct-to-consumer website that offers special flavors and specialized bundles of its top-selling products, a move that is paying off by helping to offset the plunge in its food service business. That's the unit that caters to restaurants, movie theaters, and vending machines, making it the most vulnerable amid the health crisis. Pepsi beat quarterly profit forecasts.
And Chinese tech giant Tencent, think Facebook for Chinese people, says Chinese authorities are investigating a company executive. It's over allegations of personal corruption. The Wall Street Journal reports he allegedly collected personal data from WeChat and then shared it with a former Chinese official who himself is being investigated for violating Chinese Communist Party rules. So the Tencent executive may be entangled in the case. He often met with regime officials in his role at Tencent. The Chinese regime often uses personal data collected by WeChat for its own surveillance operations. And move along London, Amsterdam is now Europe's biggest stock trading centre. It benefited from Brexit, which forced EU investors to use platforms inside the European bloc. Kira Lee reports.
Amsterdam overtook London to become Europe's biggest share trading centre in January. The city has benefited from Brexit forcing European Union investors to use platforms inside the bloc. Exchanges in the Dutch capital traded over $11 billion a day in January, just ahead of London's $10.4 billion. That's according to figures from Cboe Europe Exchange, which operates in both cities. It compares with an average of over $20 billion traded daily in London during 2020. The rise of Amsterdam was well flagged ahead of Britain's departure from the EU. Share platforms began preparations for opening hubs in the Dutch capital in 2016. The EU had been clear it wanted euro-dominated financial activity, shifted from London to build up its own capital market and have direct supervision.
And still to come. Hyundai developing a new car that can reach places others can't. You don't want to miss what it can do. And are you looking for a new way to build a home? How about printing one? Find out more when we come back.
Why are millions of Americans moving their money into gold and silver? It's simple. The world has never been more unpredictable. The biggest economic crisis we've faced since 2008, and a government that's about to print trillions and trillions of dollars. That's why so many Americans are turning to gold and silver to protect their nest egg. American Hartford Gold is a trusted name to help families to safeguard their wealth. With an A+ rating from the BBB and 5-star ratings on the biggest review websites like Trustpilot and Google, American Hartford Gold can help you convert any qualifying IRA or 401k into precious metals. Or they'll help you to easily purchase physical gold and silver and deliver straight to your doorstep. Learn how you can protect your wealth with gold and silver today. Get this free 2021 information guide. Call 866-893-1493 or text TV to 65532.
Hyundai is building a walking car that can go places normal cars can't. The concept car has 4 wheels, each powered by an electric motor. Each of those wheels is on the end of a long, bendable leg. The autonomous vehicle can also drive in any direction, forwards, backwards, side to side, using either its wheels or its legs. Engineers envision it being used for difficult rescue operations, carrying supplies, or even exploring the surface of the moon or other planets. Hyundai says the Tiger X1 will take about 5 years of development and testing before it's ready for real-world use. Pretty cool. This is pretty cool as well. If you're looking to buy an affordable home in New York, you might be interested in this one. This $300,000 home came out of a 3D printer. NTD's Evelyn Lee has more.
The future is here. The first 3D printed house hits the market in the US. While it's revolutionary at first glance, it doesn't look much different from the other houses in the area.
It's very similar to your typical concrete built home you may see down south in Florida.
The home was built on Long Island by SQ4D, and it's the first 3D printed structure to receive a certificate of occupancy nationwide in an area that has some of the strictest building codes in the country. Stephen King, the listing agent, says his phone is ringing off the hook with customers that have burning questions about the house.
Serious buyers who can't believe that a new construction build is in their price range of $300,000. So some of the questions we get asked about it is if it's a modular home, if it's manufactured and then assembled on site, which it is not.
He explains that the printing machine is assembled on site. It then goes around to print out the house layer by layer. The walls are made of 2 inches thick concrete. And with the current snowstorms and cold climate in New York, King says the 3D printed house is doing just fine.
The insulation factor is incredible. So traditional homes right now that are built new construction cannot compete with our designed insulation technology.
While it is the first house for sale on the open market, it is not the only one of its kind. In Texas, the company Icon printed 6 houses for the homeless in a village outside of Austin. And in Germany, a 3D printer is working on an entire residential building. 5 families will be able to live in it after completion. While 3D printing is one of the solutions to the ongoing housing crisis, it does not entirely replace traditional construction. And governments are yet to update regulations, building codes, and establish universal standards for inspection. Evelyn Lee, NTD News, New York.
So cool. That's the latest business updates for today. You can still catch NTD Evening News, though. That starts at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. For NTD Business, it's all for today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format, where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, All around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
Hi there. A quick update. Social media has some new restrictions which might affect your access to our channel. If you want to stay tuned, make sure you visit us directly at ntd.com. We'll also have a newsletter coming out soon.